Well, a funny thing happened while I was watching Legion. I intended to just probably do like a wrap-up video on it rather than episode by episode, which I'm not going to do. But when it came back, I did a little video saying, hey, this is a great series, and boy, it really knows how to capture surrealism and all that, and they do, and it's quite an achievement, and check it out and all that. And other people I know, most notably of Nerdrotic, he was a little taken aback by it because he thought the introduction of the Switch character was more of SJW influencing another franchise. And to some extent, I suppose he has a point, but overall, I didn't really see it as much as that. As basically, when it's these 11th hour characters is always a bit problematic, and she's introduced in the first episode, and she's brought in for the very simple reason that David needs a time traveler, and her power is the ability to time travel because he wants to undo what happened to him. So when it comes to messaging and whatnot, were there any lately? Yes, there were. And one, and it's just kind of a throwaway line. It's terrible in one sense, this being that David meets his mother in the past. She's a prisoner during the war, World War II, and locked up by the Nazis because she's a gypsy. And she has a line about, but our people have been a part of this land even before borders. Well, you see, that it's a throwaway line, but in this context of today, borders were the problem. Well, and utilizing the Holocaust and all this sort of thing, and the Nazis and whatnot. It's too close to the ridiculous abuse of that terminology just over a 2016 election, and it's utterly uncalled for and a bit unconscionable. But it is kind of a tossed away line. And is it really that significant overall? No, not so much. Now, part of the integral nature of the story and the narrative set by the characters themselves, what happened later on, is far more severe to the overall story. And maybe it's not. Maybe they'll acknowledge this through the story and repair this. But if it's left as is, and this is supposed to be a kind of feminist message, I don't know, but basically what happens is the character Sydney Barrett, yes, named after the founder of Pink Floyd. And if you're a fan of Pink Floyd, you really catch all that throughout the series, which was a powerful influence for Mr. Hawley. But anyway, so in the previous series, the romance between David and Sydney went awry when she discovered that David had abused his powers to make her have sex with him. Now, they had already been lovers, they had been in a relationship, but David influenced her with his powers to want to have sex with him. And so she sees that as a violation of her person and as rape in that sense. Well, she's right. She wasn't in total consent for that, in the sense that he was using his powers to do this. That being said, is Sydney the person to judge David? Well, she is. She would be the victim of his transgression here. But on the other hand, turns out Sydney is a rapist also. And when David discovers that she has what I thought, and it seemed to present that she was guilt-ridden over this thing she did in her teenage years. And her powers has made her very withdrawn. And because if she touches people, she switches bodies with them for a limited amount of time, and they switch back. But it's a problem. So she's wearing gloves and all this. So she's kind of like Rogue in that from X-Men and all that. And so that keeps her isolated from people. And David was trying to find out why, and he needed to do so in order to save her. You got to go back to the other season. He's not going to go through the entire plot there, but he discovers what happened was when she was, 15, her mother had a boyfriend, and they had been out, and they came home, and the mother passes out on the sofa, and the boyfriend is in the shower. And so young Sydney decides to steal her mother's body with her powers and go have sex with her mother's boyfriend. And of course, there's a limited time for where she can have her mother's body, and then suddenly the switch goes forward, and suddenly it's her in the shower with the boyfriend. He's screaming and hollering. The mother wakes up, what the hell? And she goes over there and finds her boyfriend in the shower naked with her daughter. The boyfriend goes off to prison for child rape. Now and he's cast aside. He's not a major character here. It's just telling the story of what happened, but she utterly destroys this man. She victimized both him and her mother. Now, of course, the mother is irate at him, but at the same time, she's just protecting her daughter from the truth of what she can do, I guess. But her mother knew about her power. She knew what had happened, and this was all on her daughter. Her boyfriend didn't intentionally do this. The boyfriend is the rape victim here. He thinks he's having sex with his girlfriend, but he's not. He's being manipulated by Sydney. And so, and it's left at that, and David's like, oh, wow, that's really, that's terrible. And Sydney, at the time, appeared to be guilt-ridden about it, and she should. Of course, she probably should have done something to save this man's reputation. But he's just, well, whatever, that's his tough luck and all that. So now jump to the episode on the, what is it, chapter 23 at this point. Well, this would have been the night of July 15th. There's a whole lot of time travel stuff going, and they do, again, the show is very well produced and has very unique ways in how they demonstrate time travel. And here they're being attacked by these creatures who feed on time, and as a result of David's manipulating time and whatnot with Switch, the creatures break loose and they start consuming events and whatnot. And but you just got to see it to why they do it. It really, again, with the surrealism, they're very good at this and coming up with creative ways of showing this sort of thing. But anyway, Sydney, as a result of time being all messed up, encounters her 15-year-old self, and they have a conversation and whatnot. And Sydney says, "Well, I know it's bothering you that night," and they start talking about it. But here, Sydney is all self-righteous, and the girl's going on, I just wanted to feel something. Yeah. So she goes in there, but then he turned me around. Why did he turn me around? And then older Sydney says, it's a position of power. He said, I thought sex was about love. Well, did you? I mean, it's your mother's boyfriend. You didn't love him. Like you said, you just wanted to do something. Because you did nothing for the guy after he was falsely accused of child rape. I mean, and then Sydney's making excuses. No, he was the aggressor. Because he wanted to get it on doggy style. So this is a terrible ethic where clearly demonstrated by the events. Obviously, no one has superpowers and that sort of thing. But it clearly the man is completely innocent here. But the ethic is no, a woman is always righteous, I suppose, here. So she can just rationalize it for herself at this point. The only conclusion in the saving for the series here is that they're presenting that Sydney is now a monster. She's really the villain here, it just as much as David. The whole thing is that David is becoming the monster. A monster ruined his life in the form of the Shadow King. And slowly but surely, as the show goes on, in the first season, the division was the villains, and then they joined forces in the second season, and then here they've joined forces with the Shadow King because they figure he's the only one capable of defeating David, and so if the narrative is that they're all becoming villains in the end, because at this point I don't know who the hero is because David is becoming more and more abusive of his powers. He's subdued it. He's made an entire cult of people who have just basically become addicted to him because he can just will them to feel good and that sort of thing. So that could be the point here, but I don't know if that was just thrown in as to explain her self-righteous and a victim status towards David over what he did, Well, at the same time, she did the same thing, and it's worse because at least David acknowledges he was wrong, and he says, "I'm going to fix it. I'm going to change time and all that, and I won't even be that person because he's really, of course, he's blaming the Shadow King, I suppose. Although, but Sydney just says, no, I wasn't in the wrong. The guy in the shower was. He's just trying to take a shower." And you barge in there, and you stole your mother's body. You barge in there naked. I'm sorry, no. The villain there was Sydney. So, and I mean, it's an interesting thing if the people producing the show are just showing this for the purpose of the discussion or not, or if they're actually agreeing with Sydney here. That would be quite a problem and a terrible ethic to present within the show. So because I mean, with her wanting to kill David now, more so for what he did to her, not about his threat to the world, and yet she's not the one in any moral ground when she did something very similar to this man. So anyway, there you go for that. It was an interesting little interlude there. If they're going to say that they're all becoming villains because of the abuse of their powers, and maybe the show ends when no one has any, and that would be for the best, I don't know. But the overall course of time travel and that sort of thing, and when it's always the same formula here, when you're using time travel or the future, and you try to change that future, you want to avoid it because it's really horrible. And all your machinations into doing that is what causes the future to happen in the end. And granted, that's an old formula that pretty much all the time travel stories end up kind of doing here and there. But it's delivered with this very rich and creative method of how they present this show. But this scene it's really disturbing, and I don't know where they're going with it, but I just thought I'd make note of it. So there you go. Legion, a weird and fascinating show, and a bit disturbing at times. Yeah. So anyway, there you go. Thank you for watching and listening. Please like and subscribe, and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my mini stores that have plenty of goodies for you.